How old was I when I first discovered I had dyslexia? I think officially that was probably when in my late 30s. I realised I had a learning difficulty when I was a lot younger, but I think back in that day I was just labelled as thick. And it wasn't diagnosed until I got my kids diagnosed, because I recognised that they were struggling with certain things, getting words backwards, and took them for a test and then tested myself. That's when I found out. I always struggled at school academically, but I didn't know or realise it was anything. I just, I suppose for many years sort of carried that label that I wasn't very academic, and a bit of a chip on my shoulder that maybe I was a bit stupid, as that was kind of implied at school. The sort of signs to look out for in sort of your family members where they're dyslexic. I think that's probably a hard question to answer, because I think dyslexia is, people are affected in lots of different ways. The only thing I would say is that, if people like your family are struggling to comprehend something, that's the sign that I would look to, it just may mean that they need a different way of it being explained to them, because sometimes the sort of standard traditional way just doesn't make sense to someone who's got, who's dyslexic. When I knew I had dyslexia, it was just kind of like that moment of truth where it was like, I was really relaxed and really, it kind of, everything made sense at that moment, even though I didn't know I had dyslexia up until that point, and then it kind of all made sense. And actually, what I realised running my business is that I was able to use that to my advantage. So what I mean by that is, sometimes in a very sort of straightforward scenario, I won't understand what's going on. Someone will say something and I won't understand it, and everyone else will. And I'll ask a question. And for years, I always got worried about asking questions, saying that I don't understand it, or what do you mean? Can you say that again? But I realised actually what I was doing, and now I tap into it. So, and it's been very useful for building the business. So by asking lots of questions and getting people to tell me in lots of different ways what they're trying to say, where everyone else has got it, what I've realised is it might take me a little while to get to that point of understanding what they're saying. But once I've got to that point, I think what I've done is got a really global picture of everything else. And then once I've got to that point, I think because I've processed all those answers that I've got, I'm maybe 5 or 6 steps ahead in some scenarios, and being able to see a much bigger picture or a much bigger threat. So I've been able to realise that actually asking those questions, whilst I'm a bit slower to get to that point, it's really helped me visualise stuff and spot opportunities and threats, perhaps faster than maybe other people will eventually get there, but maybe have been slower to get. So kind of tap into it and use it to my advantage. For me, because predominantly my dyslexia is around my reading, the tools today are great. I mean, there's probably a whole suite of tools out there, especially from a schooling perspective that I'm not aware of. But for me in business, I use audio all the time. I use audio in my emails. If my emails come in more than a paragraph, I'll just stick it on audio on my phone and I'll get it read out to me. And I think people who know me know not to send chunks and chunks of email unless they want a slower response. But that's what I'll do. And on my laptop, I've got it all set up. So ultimately, any text that comes in audio. And once it's audio, I get it straight away. It sinks in. For me, dyslexia, it's just about how we process things, and we process it differently to maybe sort of standard, regular sort of traditional ways. First of all, it's about being patient. When someone gets frustrated around me because sometimes people are saying really obvious things that are just so simple, and genuinely, I just don't get it, right? And then if sometimes, natural reaction will be frustration. So definitely don't get frustrated, and definitely try and explain something in a very different way to what you've already done. And that might be through a story, it might be through visuals, going on, pointing someone to YouTube and having a look at YouTube, because that works a lot, that's very visual. So yeah, just very often I find that sometimes, I'll go, no, I don't understand, can you explain it again? And someone will just explain it again exactly the same way they've just explained it. I'm going, that doesn't work for me. You just need to tell me, a different route or a different story to get there. So yeah, it's about embracing what you've got and not letting it consume you, because it can do. It's a challenge. It can be a challenge from day to day, but yeah, not let it consume you, and actually look at it as an extra power that perhaps a lot of other people don't have.